I love this music. It's a simple YouTube search, free Celtic music, and I actually did a sub for him today. But for everybody else, if you don't know, and I probably should shout this guy out because I use his stuff all the time. It is Adrian. Hang on, pull it up here so I get it right. Adrian von Ziegler. Adrian von Ziegler has these YouTube Celtic songs, and his stuff is free, so there's no licensing, and it's all really good. Also minimal commercials, so I can play it. I don't have to worry about a lot of stuff I see on YouTube where, you know, every 30 seconds it's playing a commercial I have to mute during my intro. So thank you, Adrian von Ziegler, sir.
You said that's on YouTube.
I'm excited about tonight. I'm also excited about next week because getting into the tech stuff that we've done here, I'm getting a lot of questions on that. How we do music, how we do our different cams, screen shares, slobs, Twitch, Elgato, Sirenscape. What's that?
I said all the moving parts.
Yeah, all the little moving techie parts. I think it's going to be helpful, and there's so many great streamers out there. Anything I can do, because everyone I talk to, I tell them, look, I've made the mistakes. You know, that's all I know. Like I'm not some amazing expert. I've just made all the mistakes, and I want to help any way I can.
That's just how you get there.
That's it.
Well, and you learn from making those mistakes, so you know, there's that.
No, that's right. Like I had some hubris, I think, initially that I would not make those mistakes and would just get it right. But like Icarus, too close to the monitor. Really excited to have Rory on with us tonight. It looked to me, Evelyn, like all the hey, good to see you. That's Leonard. Hey, we were just talking about you, my friend. So this is old school D&D stuff tonight, and man, Snafu8252, this is going to be right up your alley. And oh hey, see Carson. I'm just so excited. We're influencing dungeon masters in a new generation, and that's what we want to do. Like, it's all about giving back to the community that's given so much to me. The game that I've loved since I was 7 years old, and I can't tell you how much it tickled me to death. I was telling these two to see you in our Discord. I've caught you on Jay's show a few times, and I appreciate your humility, but seeing someone like you that just has a long-time love of the game, so invested in lore, so much knowledge, it's where I want to be. So I really appreciate you being here with us tonight, even if it's just for a few minutes, man. And we're going to kick off here in just 3 minutes.
Sounds good.
See, Carson, it was good to see you again this weekend. I know you've been busy, but having you in chat meant a lot last night as well. Yeah, that is the best gift sub ever. Well done, Evelyn. Absolutely. I'll give that man a year of subs. Oh, so you were on the North Carolina coast. Very nice. Did not know that. And so for anybody that's not been on this stream before, this is a quick 1 hour stream. And, you know, we don't get as deep into things as you see on other shows. It's a bit more of a quick hit, DM tips, player tips, lore, things to just be a help to players in the community that really want to get deeper into it, and sharing some of the experience that not just I have had, but typically we have a lot of DMs on this show. And so hopefully we'll have that again tonight. And all those dungeon masters, a lot of experience, they can share that, and it's a help to the community. So it's a lot of fun to do. So, do either of you have a backstory you're ready to share tonight? Because I'm going to share one that's my son's first backstory from like 12 years ago. I got his permission to share it. He was like 7 years old when he wrote it. But
I think mine are probably too long to share on screen.
Yeah, mine are. Yeah, yours are pretty long, but I think that's a good thing for us to talk about too. So.
I think Marthaliel's is probably my shortest out of all of my backstories that are done.
Oh.
Because hers was my first one.
Yeah, I didn't realize that, but yeah, that's probably right. All right.
Yeah, my DM when I played before didn't have me write a backstory. He just told me who she was, and that's how I played her.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's actually another good thoughts there. Bring that up again, because that's a good reminder I didn't write down, because I have another story about that. It could be helpful. All right. So we're kicking it over. Here's the live view. You've heard us. Now you get to see us.
Hi, guys.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another session of Blue Box RPG Loremaster Arcanum. And I guess that's a bit arrogant. Am I really a Loremaster? I don't know. It just sounded cool. I'm a lore decent guy, know a little bit of lore. So I'm glad to have everyone with us tonight. And we've had a really good time with this show. Hey, Blood Wild, good to see you. We've already given shout outs to several others. Good to have Leonard on, good to have Chris on. And I know we'll continue to grow. We always have good participation here and lots of good DM chat as well. So thank you everybody for being on. And tonight's topic is one that I wanted to wait till this week, but it was almost impossible, right? You remember, Evelyn?
Last week we were having quite a bit of dipping toes into this.
Everybody wanted to go into this topic, so that told me it was a good one to do a show on.
Yeah.
So we'll get with it in a minute, but we're talking tonight about backstory creation and, putting that effort into your PC to tell their story, their history, their likes, their dislikes, their intrinsic character things. That's a really fun topic, and we're going to be dealing with that tonight. But we also want to just say thank you to everybody who's been supporting the channel. Our growth lately has been incredible. We've had great sessions on Sunday with our Rune Lords campaign. That's 1:30 Central Time on Sundays, US. And then our Greyhawk Awakening. What's that?
Except for this coming Sunday, which is Father's Day, so there's no session this coming Sunday.
And I've actually changed that. If everybody's
Really?
available, yep. I've moved it around, so we're going to still run on Sunday if everyone can. So I've got a session will be off in about 3 weeks, but yeah, if everyone can, we're going to run this Sunday too. So, and then of course the second one, which is, hey, good to see you, Jay. Welcome, sir. And, this Greyhawk Awakening campaign, this has been revelatory for us, not just for the players, but for the channel. A huge participation that's grown, all the viewers, followers, subs, connecting with the community. And by the way, I think something I should show, I didn't plan this, so it's super tacky, but for all of our Greyhawk folks, I'm going to pivot this camera around. It's going to look wonky for a second, right? Very low production quality here, but it's still fun. And over here, you're going to see the map on the wall.
Nice.
46-inch, and it's not crooked. It just looks crooked on the camera here. It's perfectly straight. 46-inch map. This is Anna B. Meyer's incredible Greyhawk map. This is a custom version that she created for Greyhawk Awakening. And it's covering a good half of a long wall here. It is the most beautiful accoutrement for our gaming room, and I am super excited about it. So, sorry, just a little humble brag there. Shout out really to Anna, who did all that. Yeah, it is a big Anna map, 42 by 46. So, last thing I'm going to say by way of introduction, and we're getting into the topic tonight, is Father's Day. Exactly. A hero standpoint session is how I want. They asked me, what do you want to do on Father's Day? I want to play D&D. That's what I want on Father's Day. So that's what I'm doing. Next week, it's a different show. Next week, we're going to be getting into technology. So we're going to be talking about all the streaming components that I run here. How I run Streamlabs OBS, what I do with Twitch, how I handle Elgato Stream Decks for the DSLRs and image captures, the Sirenscape technology that we're using, the kickoffs that I use for all the buttons, all the scene changes, and all the frickin' mistakes I've made, because I've made all of them.
I pushed the wrong button.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you what that meant yesterday when I said push the wrong button. You'll see how tragic that really is, because one button, when you automate things, one button does everything. It can be a huge problem. Okay, so let's jump into the session tonight and let's talk about backstories. So before I begin with my sort of typical narrative, I'd like to get some thoughts from the group. Oh, by the way, a quick shout out, Adrian Von Ziegler. This is all free for use. If you search this on YouTube, it's non-licensed Celtic music and has almost no commercials in it. It's really great for the background on streaming. This is what I've used every week, and I just feel like I should shout him out because it doesn't get flagged on YouTube, and then it pauses as soon as I say to that, but it should kick off here in a second. I'll go back to the beginning. I don't know what happened there, but it's fantastic. And then we have, of course, Dragon Crafting Guild, Atlas Minis, Frederica, all of our friends and supporters, Lord Gasumba, Jay, and then our Greyhawk community, GHO, Greyhawk Online, Orc Journal, Greyhawk Wiki, fantastic group, and we're proud of being part of it. All right, so I'm joined tonight by my two illustrious co-hosts. We have Rory of Two Dungeon Masters, and his is a podcast. You can go ahead and pop that in the chat, so they have all the creds. And Rory, tell us a little bit about you, what you do, why you like the game, and why you're even here with me tonight.
Well, okay. So what I do, yeah, I do a lot, I guess. I started doing the podcast with a friend about 9 months ago or so. We're on our third season. Just basically talking to the community, the up and rising, like trying to get more DMs, right? Encourage people to do that, or how to conducively run a game. So that's been a big focus. Man, John, every time you ask me something, my brain goes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Talk about your one-shots, your use of Roll20.
Yeah, so I, thanks to, an incident that happened like 3 months ago globally, really reached out to the community and started using Roll20, using the different abilities of that with dynamic lighting, getting players to still be able to play. So I run a Discord server in addition to the podcast to be able to bring people together. And ironically, it's still the same thing, right? Bringing people together and helping them. I just have total strangers, 60 plus strangers that we just play. And
right.
Together, whether some have backstories, such as tonight's topic, some don't. It's just a one shot after one shot where they just enjoy. They can use the same character. It's a lot of fun.
No, I think that's exactly right. Now, I've done 3 of your one-shots now, so I guess that's 3 shots, and they've been a lot of fun. Let's go to you, Evelyn.
What do you want me to say? What are you looking for?
Whatever you want. Like, introduce yourself to the audience, and talk about sort of your experience with backstories at a high level, and then we're going to dive in.
All right, so hi, I'm Evelyn. I am Theater Evie or Theater Evie Props online. You can find me out there. And I have been playing D&D off and on for a while. And my very first D&D game that I played in, I actually didn't write a backstory because my DM didn't want that. He said, "This is what you're playing, and this is who you are, and that's how you're gonna play it."
Okay.
And he was like, it's just going to be easier for you to do it like this. And I was like, okay. And that was fine, I guess. I don't think I was as interested in that character as I am in the ones that I've actually written the backstories for. But yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so I am in 3 of John's D&D campaigns right now. I play in the 4th Age campaign as Marathaliel, the Elven Cleric. I play as Irda, the Asmar Skald, in our Rise of the Rune Lords campaign. And I am now Millie in the Greyhawk campaign. So,
much to everyone's delight. Millie is a fan favorite already, for sure. All right, so let's talk. I think you brought up a great point there, which is, look, backstories are not requisite. I think I'm gonna drop a confession here, and this may just kill the whole show, but I Googled for Dragon magazine articles about creating backstories, and oh, hey Gar, good to see you. Yeah, so the miniatures are everybody's. They're mine. They're Atris. Some are sort of, Whiz Kids pre-paints. I've got, I don't know, a couple 300 minis here, and they're of all types. But as I said last night, the best ones are Atris. That guy's amazing. I'm decent. He's incredible. So, hey, good to see you again tonight. And yeah, we can talk about some of the other stuff you were asking about too. So pop those questions in the chat. We really want this to be interactive with the viewers. So back to the idea of the backstory. It's not necessary. And when I was searching the Dragon magazines, and maybe I didn't do the search right, but I did it like 3 times, I wasn't finding any articles, through all of those different episodes of Dragon that talked about how to create good character backstories. So point 1, any of the viewers that can give me the Dragon Mag episode, or issue rather, and point it out to me, I'll go ahead and pull that up on the stream tonight so we can show it to the viewers. I just didn't find it when I was searching. It wasn't in any of the hard copies I have here, and it didn't come up on any of my Google sort of searches, which, told me again, if you look back to Gygax and Chainmail, how the game really started as a more tactical game. There is nothing wrong with rolling up your fighter, getting his stats, his abilities, and going out to hack and kill and fix traps and all that sort of stuff. That's a fun way to play, and it's in no way meant to be deprecating to that style of game. But I can't remember a time I didn't create backstories. Even back when I was, maybe when I was 8 years old, I didn't, but like in the early 80s, I was creating backstories. It was fun to me to create the story of the character. So let's start there. Again, the question to the audience, if there's any Dragon magazine that talks about, hey, Captain Mymorph, good to see you again. Yeah, that's right. No, that's the danger, right? We always have that joke here that the best way to get your character killed is to write a detailed backstory and then order like a Hero Forge mini, get it painted, send it to the DM, and you're going to die in the next episode. It seems to happen every time. But
yeah,
I'm waiting.
Sorry, Chris.
Corindithus rip. So if anybody has, that's right. It encourages role play. Same and back. So if anybody has a Dragon Magazine article, that's the first thing for the audience. If you know of a Dragon Mag article that talks about creating a backstory, let me know. Now let me forward it to, let's start with Rory. Rory, you're the newest player to the game. Your experience before the Greyhawk Awakening campaign has all been 5e. What had you done previously with backstories? Because I know you've done some good work. And what does it mean to you, and how have you used it in your campaigns?
In the very beginning, I didn't have a backstory. Yep. In the very beginning, it was really just more understanding how to create a character.
Sure.
Which was actually Brent, who I'm on the podcast with, was, just kind of walked me through it, like, hey, you can do this with this race, this is how you roll, just the basic character creation stuff. So that was kind of like, I've been playing three and a half years now, so that was my intro to it with 5e, was just, hey, let's get your toes wet, here's how you create a character. Since then, I've had, apparently I order too many minis because I've had multiple characters. One actually died before I got the mini.
Oh no!
So
Well, that actually falls right in line. If you saw C. Carson's comment, he said that Backstories and that whole effort is really just a product of the mini companies to get you to order minis, and then by the time you receive them, you're dead and you have to order another mini. So
yeah, very good point. With them, as I got more familiar with the game, I started writing more and more backgrounds. John, you've seen, and even I've kind of fleshed it out a little bit more as I've learned more about Greyhawk. But I tend to not. I don't write 26 pages.
right.
But I do write enough to connect. I guess the kind of backstory I like is one where it should provide ample detail to the DM, and yet leave open ends to, like, maybe I don't name parents. Maybe I don't, hey, there are siblings, but I don't name what they are. I don't give their personalities. I might give an idea, or I don't name the villain, or really, because then I can allow the DM to really grab a hold of that, because they've already got the framework for the rest of it. So that's where my experience has brought me.
Good, I like that. So that's an important part of the topic tonight is how much is too much? Can you get too detailed? Does it become constraining to the DM? This is, again, a shout out to Anna's map. Let's go to you, Evelyn. Talk about your experience with backstories. I don't say you haven't created 26-page backstories, but I've observed yours are more detailed, for example, than what Rory sent, although Rory, yours was great, so that's not disrespectful, just different styles. Talk about yours.
Yeah. Well, I actually come from a background of like liking to write a lot, just fiction and things. So that comes from a lot of it is like I like to develop my characters. I wrote and produced a play in college. I wrote a novel at 16. So these are things that like I wanted to. I look at it when I do these backstories is I treat them as characters that would be in a story that I write. I need them to feel well-rounded, like they have enough structure for me to know like what motivates them and what gives them, makes them who they are. I don't necessarily need to like know exactly what's happened every second of every day, but I also like to create little things that are interesting in the story that like gives the DM things to grab onto. And leave enough space for them to also play around in there, because you don't want to completely go, okay, this is exactly what happened every step of the way. But I definitely am much more of a detail writer than like outline writer. And I do that more for me than the DM at the end of the day.
Well, so that's a great point. So let's take that right there. So one, what's the purpose of the backstory? It's both for the player and the DM. For the player, why does a detailed backstory? Let's just kind of follow that one. Why does that matter for a player? What does it give a player?
Well, like I said, it gives you your character's motivation. It gives you the point to spring from when you're role playing them, because real people have real stories, and if you want your characters that you're role playing to feel real and to feel like a person that you can like put yourself into, you need the detail for them to feel like an actual honest living breathing person.
No, that's right. I said C. Carson said it well. You're vested, right? So as a player, you don't want your PCs to be cookie cutters. The more you have in terms of detail, not just backstory, but sort of the fleshing out of the character. So their idiosyncrasies, their companions, and that doesn't have to be necessarily backstory, but it's part of the fleshing out of the PC, and that makes it so much more real to the player. But Rory, what does it give to the DM?
I hate to sound like I'm copping out, but kind of the same thing. Motivation, where the player can connect with walking along the path, the DM can connect to make the path. For me, it's, and especially right now, I have a player who she made a pact with a fae, right? So she gave me this very kind of vague outline. Hey, this is where my character is. This is what she's doing. She's kind of mentally shifting right now, and she wants to make a pact with an archfey. So we did a recording session where we played it out, and she's like, you run with the fae, pick whatever fae and run with it how you want to do it. So I think beyond motivation for how to create this world, right? Because you're creating an overarching world, and then, if you got 5 players, you're creating 5 mini worlds.
Right.
But it also creates connection between player and DM.
No, I think that's well said. All right, so let's jump off there. Let's get to some of these sort of sticking points of this. And Leonard Snafu8252 just brought this up on the screen. This is one of the main topics I wanted to touch on tonight, which is how much is too much. So he suggests keeping it simple so that you don't remove mystery. And I've actually because I couldn't find Dragon articles, I did web searches today, looked through several places. I got a couple Reddits and posts in different places. These are not authorities, just thought-provoking things. So, what about this idea? Let's go back to you, Evelyn. What about this idea that you can have too much, which then becomes prescriptive and restrictive to the DM?
Well, I mean, it depends on the DM too. Like, some DMs prefer very little, like, information, and some don't mind longer, backstories or slightly more detailed and can work within those things. That's going to be a person to person sort of thing. As someone who tends to write longer backstories, John's done some pretty incredible things with the stuff that I've given him.
Oh wow, have I?
Including making me kill my own sister.
There was that, yeah, that's right, yeah.
So yeah.
That's a really good point. So you as a DM, and this is a stylistic choice. Every DM has to advise their players what they expect. So let's start there. I think before we go into how much is too much or not enough, the first thing is it depends on the DM and the campaign. So as a dungeon master, I don't go to a new player, hey Rory, you're going to be a player in my campaign, create a backstory. And Rory says, what game world? What system? Where should I start at? You have no detail, right? So a DM has the sort of initial responsibility. You have to give the player enough information to guide the creation of their backstory, which gives them the lore they should pull from, the world they should pull from, what races, classes, all these different things that are available. I don't allow Dragonborn, turtle people, bird people. Tiefling, that's like a more controversial, but I don't like tieflings, right? So I'm pretty strict with the sort of traditional canon and lore. The half-ogre in this campaign is the most exotic player character I've ever allowed. But your DM may vary. So as a DM, Rory is an example. You go to your players and you say, hey, look, these are the classes and races that are available. Here's the world you're going to be in. And maybe some guidance. So I think I even gave, in this Greyhawk campaign, the players some guidance that this is the area of the world that you're going to be kind of centered around. Make sure that what you're doing makes sense in context. So I give just that basic guidance, and then I let the players choose the rest. That's important, or your player has nothing to go with. Before I move on, any comments on that, Rory or Evelyn?
Well, I know, like, with the Rise of the Rune Lords campaign, I left, like, where Irda was from very vague because I didn't, know exactly where she would be from, and I did, like, comparatively to, like, Greyhawk, I knew kind of, like, I knew where to do the research, and with our 4th Age campaign, I knew Lord of the Rings, and I would know where, Elf would be
that
from.
was the easier one, yeah. But I still had to tell you 4th Age, right?
Yeah,
after the War of the Ring, it's been destroyed, Gollum's gone, all that's happened.
Right.
So you have to give that basic intel to the player.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and so, like, with anything, you need at least a general, like, you might not say I'm exactly from this place, but having a general framework of, okay, here's where I would start from, and then you can build from there.
Exactly. Yeah, well said. Hey, sorry to hear that. You're living on the edge of civilization, Leonard. That happens to all of us at times. Twitch is everybody's best friend and worst enemy at times with how it cooperates. Rory, did you have any comments on that before I move on?
I think you guys hit it pretty square on the head. I like chaos, but even John, you played on the server. It's anything that's Wizard of the Coast. I mean, for the most part, if it's been canonized or allowed by them, then it's allowed. So a lot of races are allowed. A lot of things some stuff is getting more restricted, but I pretty much allow a lot to go in, but I'm still doing what you guys said. There's still a race. There's still the world of Faerun. There's still the general even area within Faerun. So like these things still, even the context of its pre spell play
Right.
for that world, right? So there's still that context for them to go off of.
Exactly. No, I think that's well said. So then, once you have that, let's come back to this idea of too much, too little. So I've got an article up here, and this is, by no means authoritative, right? This is just, I think this is on RPG Exchange. As I was going through my searches today, I pulled up things I thought would be thought-provoking rather than actually authoritative. And when I look at Dragon Magazine, by the way, Rory, I think that's a critical thing. Wizards of the Coast for me, that's sort of suggestive. TSR, that's authoritative. It's sort of old school, new school. But I love all the stuff that you guys are doing. All right, so here, this guy complained that the players are doing too much. He said, as an example, I have a character who is saved from drowning by an unknown sea entity, which left him with a cursed sword. Great. But now player 1 will occasionally try to send me ideas of what he thinks the monster might be, which is really not up to him. Player 2 is playing a character that she played in previous campaigns, which I'm allowing because she was more or less expelled from the campaign by the DM for refusing to do his job. We shall reserve names, protect the innocent. So the idea here is, I think, one of the main questions is, how do you keep players from assuming abilities, powers, items to themselves? They write power into their backstory.
Well, I think that's just one thing that has to be a big conversation between the player and the DM. At the beginning, this is what's allowed and this is what's not. And I don't know that it's very fun as a player, at least, to like basically go, I have all this power at level 1. It doesn't make sense. You have no room to grow if you're already like the top of the top. Like, why are you even adventuring if you are already ultra hero?
Yeah, no, well said. Rory, anything for you?
Yeah, I call it new player syndrome. I mean, it's what Evelyn said. Your level 1 is just above the average noble. They're mighty, they're great, but they're not everything. And if you look at any good story arc, there's got to be room for growth. And if you can already kill Tiamat, then what's the point of playing?
Yeah, and look, it's a natural thing. I think it is often with new players, but the player should be told what they can and can't put in their backstory. So you can give yourself items, trinkets, things of importance to you, sort of emotionally with your family, but don't give yourself, a masterwork two-handed sword or mithril chainmail or some potent magical item. Or even like, I think you have to be careful about what their connections are familially. So like, is the player allowed to be the son of the king? All those things, they have to be, Phantom NJ said it well, it should be a player-DM collaboration. So that backstory, I want the player to have as much creativity as possible, but I need to keep them in certain lanes so that they're not disrupting the balance. And really, it's for to Rory's point, it's for their benefit. No one, they might think they want to be all-powerful at first level, but they don't really. It's no fun. This is why Gary Gygax thought, PCs should stop at 10th level. It was this, and I love first level campaigns. I don't know what you guys are thinking, sort of this Greyhawk, but you're falling unconscious in every combat. You're close to death all the time. There's a joy in that, and you don't want your backstory to become something that leaps over the top of that vulnerability at early levels. Yeah?
For sure. Yeah, I agree with that entirely.
All right, so this guy had a problem, but I think we've covered that pretty well. Getting a trinket's fine. Player defining, that's right, Phantom. Exactly. I'll give them options. I'll work with it. So let me bring up an example of that before I move on with these different articles I pulled up. And I got permission to do this tonight.
Yes.
All right, so you are seeing, Blue Box fans, those who are on tonight. Anyone else seeing those buffering issues, by the way?
I had a little bit of buffering a little while ago, but it's fine now.
So I'm guessing, I hate blaming everything on Twitch, but let me just double check. Slobs looks good. I'm going to pull up here. I'm going to let you guys watch this. I'm going to pull up a speed test, which is going to show you everything else that I'm doing here. As I pull up my speed test, it's going to be, I think, close to 200 megabits down and probably 40 megabits up. Let's see if I'm right. 11 ping. Yeah, okay. So this is not us. I don't know what's going on tonight with Twitch or whatever. Okay, I'm getting 300. All right, sorry. Did not mean to brag on that. Obviously, upload's more important. That's download. Let's let it finish to upload. Make sure it's not on my end.
And buffering again.
And you're buffering. Ooh, there's a pause on. Oh, there it goes. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Huh. All right.
There it goes.
Well, whatever that is, we'll work through it tonight. So, here is. You ready?
Yes.
The secret. No one's ever seen it. All right. This. Oh, hey, thank you for the follow, Eternus Gaming. Oh, it's 99% on your end. I get you, Blood Wild. It happens sometimes. Speed test killed it, Phantom. Yeah, it might have. Probably pulled all my bandwidth down while they were doing that. I mean, 40 megabits up. That should be fine. Anyway, this is the player character folder I've kept. It's a treasured item that sits in a box down here. This was my son's first character. He wrote this backstory when he was 7 years old. He's now a sophomore in college. This player was played for almost 7 years in a long-running campaign. And I have here his original backstory. So faint, it can barely be read. But this stuff is gold. It's glorious for DMs to have this content. In this one, I'll read a bit, and he said it was okay, so I'm not. But it's the beginning of Sledge. So this was a dwarf, and his first name was Sledge. Anyone want to guess his last name?
Hammer.
Oh, so intuitive. When you're 7 years old, you let it go. So this is a dwarf named Sledge, and the beginning of his life was pretty bad. His mom and dad got divorced, which, by the way, never happened in our life, so this was not like an actual reflection of our family. But his mom was very mean to him. I think he probably had gotten spanked the day he got this, or maybe he got a timeout or something. He gives her name. Her name was Sobe Hammer. His mom kicked him out of the house in the beginning of the story. Sledge was walking up on a hill. One day he saw a knife and he picked it up, and it just wasn't a regular knife. It was a big and shiny knife in really good shape. My point is just like, it's really fun stuff. Paging Mr. Gabriel. Yes, Peter Gabriel, Hammer, well done, Phantom. So I think giving the players that guidance, and honestly for me, there's no such thing as too much. Whatever you give me, I can work with. And, Evelyn, I think I've said this to you before, but if as a player, you give too much to the DM. So if you give me 27 pages, too prescriptive, as a DM, what do you do?
I don't know.
Rory, you want to take a shot at that?
No.
I mean, you could just work with it, but I mean, I leave a lot up to my players. I leave a whole lot of the game up to my players, whether we're talking about in-game and it's kind of sandbox-ish, or it's their character. If I've learned, if I pull the creativity away from the player, I pull the player away from the game.
Phantom and Jay.
No,
Nice.
I think your answer was great, Rory. I think Phantom's answer was better. Ask them to send me the next chapter.
Sometimes, yeah.
No, exactly. Look, I mean, I think it's you should never pull the player away from the game. That's right. You should never discourage them. If a player sends me a 26-page backstory, I'm going to find everything in there I like and tell them I love it, compliment everything they've done well. But as a DM, that will never constrain me, because guess what I can do? I can choose what I want to include and what I don't want to include in my campaign. I don't think there's any backstory I've ever gotten, including Sledge. He had a necklace and a knife. The necklace made it into the campaign over the years. The knife, I don't think, ever did. Right? I don't have to take everything the player puts in the backstory and weave it into the campaign. I can kind of pick and choose. So, comments, thoughts on that for either of you? Total party kill. Captain Myamorph says the answer to the 26-page backstory is a total party kill.
I mean, I think at least in going to Marthaliel's backstory, I think the only like really major item that I included in her story was her holy symbol that she got from her mother, who was also a cleric, and that's the only that would make sense for level 1 cleric. She has her holy symbol, but other than that, like certain things aren't necessary to the grander scale of the story at the end of the day. So.
No, I think that's exactly right, Rory.
No, nothing else.
Okay, so here are some suggestions from Geek and Sundry. Again, not a source I normally pull up, nor do I shop at Yard Games or eat at Firehouse very often, but this is the web for you. And their first suggestion is to keep it sketchy. So they're advising don't go too detailed, keep it flexible. So again, for me, there's not anything a player can put in that's too much as long as it's within the boundaries. They're not giving themselves too much power, too much wealth. That's as long as they avoid those mistakes and they follow my general prescription for area, gaming world system, I can work with anything that they create. Second, and I love this one, become part of the world. So players didn't grow up in a vacuum. Characters, they had families, they lived in towns, or they worked in cities, they formed connections, heroes, villains before the story began. This is often the bond that can be tapped in inspiration for all of D&D, not just 5th edition, which is the Geek and Sundry focus. DMs should look to gather these elements and connect them together. Some DMs might already have, for example, a Thieves Guild in mind when beginning a world that will connect a rogue. So I agree with this. And I think both of you did a fantastic job on this with your Greyhawk Awakening characters. But their main thing I ask is, Phantom MJ said, their characters' aspirations. Exactly. So this really goes to this idea. Who do they love? Who do they hate? Who do they admire? Who influenced them? Who hurt them? These are the things that form our lives. And the more a player thinks through those things, those are not the kinds of things that put handcuffs on a DM. Those are the kind of things that give life to the player. Comments, thoughts on that from either of you?
No, I totally agree with that, and I think it goes back to what I said before. Knowing who you are connected to helps make you more, your character's more of a real person. Everybody has the family, their friends, the people that they've encountered along the way that have created who they are to this day. And I think the backstory needs at least a little bit of that. You don't have to necessarily name everybody and give everybody a backstory as well. But, they at least need to have, those people who have helped mold them, and then what pushes them from that onward. Yeah,
I think that's well said. So, last couple points on this article. Consider a connection to the PCs. So, one of the most difficult parts a Dungeon Master has early in the campaign is justifying a group of strangers deciding to team up and plunder together. Now, we kind of circumvented that by using a prelude session 0, and I've been through all of that. The old trope, the classic is you all meet together in a
tavern,
right? And so every DM that's done this for a while tries to battle that. I've had players start in dungeons. I've had them start in the wilderness. I've had them start as slaves in cages to orcs. All kinds of fun ways.
We started on the road in Middle-earth on our way to Minas Tirith.
That's exactly right. Yeah, so you were sort of open on the road on the way to Minas Tirith. I forgot about that. That's true. Yep. That's how we started that. But ultimately, the player backstories can help that. So if you look at what we did with the Greyhawk Awakening campaign, I knew Gimbal. I knew his motivations. I knew, that Millie was easily pulled by coin. A coin was the answer. The way to her heart was through her wallet. And so understanding those motivations makes it much easier for a DM to give a believable, connected way to get the players journeying together on their campaign. And then lastly, and I'm fine with this, consider a signature item. So something that The holy symbol is actually a reference up there, which you just talked about, Evelyn. First thing that they ever killed, swords, but again, nothing of power, but something of emotional or personal significance. These are great ways to connect the player, the PC, to the character they create. So before I move on, any comments on that?
Yeah, on that last note of what I wrote down is the daily is extraordinary, right? So
That's
it
great.
might be the holy symbol that you have already at level 1. It might be a trinket, a necklace. Long term, it doesn't have any quote unquote power or ability to it, but it does have major significance to it. So getting the player to see the significant in the mundane, I think does a lot of the shaping to be able to bring them into the world, into their character, without saying, I'm the DM and you can't do this. It's just seeing the extraordinary in the daily.
Bravo, sir. Well said.
Yeah.
I like that. So Phantom NJ said he tries I keep wanting to close the Firehouse ad too, so I pulled it down. Nothing against Firehouse, but I'm sick of seeing it on the screen. I couldn't close it out. I tried. Phantom said, I try very hard to avoid the met in a tavern trope. It's not easy, especially with a larger party. No, that's right. And look, I think honestly, hey, Eternus, oh, thank you. Very well constructed point. So I think the truth is you've got to serve a couple different masters. If it's you and 4 of your friends sitting around a table with draft beer, then you could probably waste 2 hours arguing over why you should even work together. That happened with our 4th Age campaign. I remember that. I think we spent 2 sessions before, probably a good 6 hours before the party even agreed to work together, and that continued for several sessions, as a thread through it. When you're streaming, you're doing stuff on Twitch and you're trying to get something going, and it's a show, but you're also trying to stay true to the game. That can be a little bit of a tougher balance. If I have to choose one way or the other, I'm always going to fall back to the origins of the game. I'm not doing this for theater. I'm doing this for love of Dungeons and Dragons, the game that has meant so much to me since I was 7 years old. So as long as we stay true to that, I'll try to tweak to make it a little more aesthetically pleasing for the stream, but I will never serve that master over this master. And I think that's a critical thing for every DM to decide.
Yeah.
All
right, sorry, that sounded preachy, didn't it? All right.
But it plays into a bigger point throughout the whole game, I think, for DMs and players. I run one-shots, and there's a little bit of just acknowledging that you're in a one-shot and you have a place to go.
Right.
At the same time, there's the same thing with the DM. As long as the players and as long as the group is on that same page and understanding each other, I mean, so you make your statement, John, and I think it's valid to say, this is my priority. Is it your priority too? Yes, great. Let's go forward.
Well, and it's great when you have, even like amongst the players at the table, a couple of them that are very motivated by something that says, okay, I need help from the rest of you guys to get this job done. So, whatever it takes to make that happen helps, I think, bring everybody together at the beginning in particular.
Like spiders in a cave.
Exactly. So, Rory, I think that's a really good point that you make. And as you're getting to sort of being on the same page with your players, in a one-shot, you'll probably remember, I'll put you on the spot. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think you ever read Aramis's full backstory, did you?
Not like really like.
I knew it! So
I read it through, and then I was done. And then
it's fine. I'm not mad at you. So he had a one-shot. He reached out to me, and I had probably a 3-page backstory, I think, something like that.
I think it was 2, and I just wasn't expecting it. And I got 100 excuses.
Yeah, no, don't sweat. It's fine. So my point, like for a one-shot, right? I wrote a 2-page backstory. Why was I showing? No, it's because I love it. Like to me, if I'm going to play D&D, if I'm going to spend even 4 hours of my time on a one-shot, I want to feel connected to that character. I want to feel like it's something that I can give emotion and life to, and that to me was important enough to spend that time even for a one-shot that now is going to be a 3 or 4 shot, right?
Now, that being said, John, and I maybe just in my defense, because of that, because I realized how transparent that was at the end of the first one. Because of that, I've cared more about it when other players do submit one.
Okay. Well, good. And yeah, I'm sorry. I did not. That was
No,
me.
you're good.
I wasn't trying to do that to you, Rory. It's fine.
No,
but I
you're
just,
good,
yeah,
you're good.
I could tell by
that's
the
important for DMs to
right.
see,
No,
hey, there's
yeah,
lessons learned.
yeah. So like, okay, I guess So that's a good point to kind of touch on. What we're talking about is at the end of his first, I created a character. Long story short, he was a fighter. Fairly vanilla in terms of his abilities and feats, but his backstory. He had been a slave. He had been betrayed. He had a brand on his forehead that he covered with a bandana. He had a certain life goal and a worldview. And at the conclusion of the one-shot that Rory ran, which is fantastic, and he's really good using Roll20 and the online stuff. And at the very end, he had the summaries for each of the players. And the summary that he gave for what Aramis, which was my character, would do after the campaign was like 90 degrees away from what Aramis would actually do. And that told me that, A, maybe I hadn't role-played him correctly, but B, he hadn't looked at the backstory. And as a DM, I think that's one of the messages. If you're going to ask your characters for backstories, and they're going to spend the time, okay, if it's 26 pages, maybe you don't ask for the next chapter, right? But within reason, there should be a burden on you to actually read it, look at it, and think about it. So, Phantom said, one of the things you've seen new DMs struggle with is the balance between the story the DM wants to tell, versus exactly. That's so true, Phantom. And that, to me, though, that's the art of DMing. And I think all the players, this is not meant to be a humble brag, but all the players that have played with me, it's just because I love it. This is what I love to do. I love to have my major storylines and plots, and then find places that the character backstories can come to life within those structures, and then also influence my plots and ideas. And so I think as we're getting ready to close up here in the next few minutes, we're going to give Jay a raid. Has a backstory ever made you root for a character against another? Ooh, that's a good question, Chris. I'm going to answer that honestly in just a second. But the DM tip I have is, I don't know, maybe you're not like me, but I run weekly campaigns. I've actually got 2 weekly campaigns, a monthly campaign. I've got this show. It's a lot. I do actually have a job. I've got a family. I'm full-time, everywhere. And every once in a while, I'll be thinking about, oh crap, Sunday's coming. I've got the Rune Lords campaign. Or more recently, Tuesday's coming up and I've got such high expectations and all these new viewers and people with Greyhawk and Anna and Jay and Christoph and Leonard and they're all watching me. I've got it, right? So I get stressed about it. And it's helpful to me when I've got all my plots and subplots and ideas and books I'm reading. Every once in a while, I did it this last weekend on Sunday with my my Rune Lords campaign. Guess what I'll go back to? The player backstories. I'll go back. I'll reread player backstories from campaigns that are 4 years old. And I'll look back at them and I'll find things I missed. I'll find things the players forgot all about. As an example, on Sunday, I didn't even realize it, but Solomon, the Baron Solomon, the Cavalier in our Rune Lords campaign, the week before he'd been trying to tame and ride this obviously intelligent and highly trained bear, and you're going to find out more and more about what that bear is about. And it was a bit of an awkward, I was like, what are you doing? And that was, hey, Lord Grindelwolf, good to have you following us. Thank you so much tonight. And I was scratching my head on that. I kind of played along with him. And then I thought, I really need to look at this character again, find out what's motivating him. I reread his backstory. That campaign's been going on for not quite a year, close to a year.
It was August.
Yeah,
so almost.
10 months, whatever. So I looked back at it and was like, oh crap, he talked about this character's penchant for writing anything he could find. He even talked about writing bears if he could in the backstory. I'd forgotten that. So there is such rich stuff. Don't be afraid of your player writing too much. Take the threads you want today and realize, again, maybe different for a one-shot, Rory, but for a long-term persistent campaign, realize 2-3 years from now, you may love being able to go back to something there and find content that you can pull into the campaign to make it everything feel connected and contiguous. So again, I'm feeling like I'm evangelizing, but that's my most passionate point.
I think I would almost rather a player write too much than too little. I mean, because then you have more stuff to play with, you know?
I could not agree more. I could not agree more. For me, I can rein in if they go out of the rails of what's appropriate, but more content about their loves. I mean, think about it. This is, typically no one's playing a 5-year-old character, right? Mm-hmm. There are very few, it's only 4 characters, right? That's true. You're right, exactly. But I promise you, I've done it with 6 characters too. Now, I don't like more than 6. My personal preference as a DM, 4 is the minimum, 5 is the sweet spot, 6 is the maximum. I don't want, I can run 3 if someone's missing, but I don't create campaigns with 3 PCs, and I don't create campaigns with 7 or 8 PCs. And I know there are people out there like Phantom. Phantom runs 12-hour sessions, I think he said, with 8 PCs. Oof. I mean, bravo, bravo, sir. That is beyond my ken and understanding. I can't roll that way. For me, that kind of 4, 5 is the sweet spot, 6 at the most, and those backstories really help. Can't remember the last time you just had 5. Yeah, you got too many people that want to play with you. That's why. So I think it's a good point that there's really nothing that can be too much in my campaigns, but I don't have to pay attention to everything at the beginning, and having that stuff to mine from down the road is just the most beautiful thing to create great player stories. So we got just a few minutes left. I want to touch on 2 other points before I move on. Rory, Evelyn, anything else you'd like to say on any of the topics we've covered?
I don't know. I think one of the funnest things about the fact that, like, with the detailed backstories is sometimes the things that you wrote about and you, as a player, forgot you wrote about can come and bite you in the butt later on. It's just kind of amazing.
So that's so true. And so if you've got a DM that's paying attention, that's really true. What would be an example of that? Do you have an example you can give? Putting you on the spot?
I'm trying to think.
It's okay if
I've seen it a lot, like in other campaigns that I've watched, but like, I mean, the only thing that was the major thing that you've pulled from so far in my it's just the thing I mentioned already about Irda and one of her missing sisters showing up and being having been renamed Nualia and everything in the Rune Lords.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you had a sister in your campaign that essentially became an enemy, an evil individual, but was consistent with how you'd written your backstory with really lack of information and off to the 4 winds. So I'm putting something up here, by the way. I'm not recommending this. I've never read it. I'm only showing this to you because when I did my Google searching today, I was shocked to find there's a book on Amazon called The Ultimate RPG Character Backstory Guide.
Look at that!
Oh, Rory! You waited till the end of the show to bring that up?
Oh, hey, by the way, I got this.
Hey, thank you, Phantom. I appreciate that very much. So, Rory, have you read it? Oh, you've owned it. Oh, Phantom owns it too. So, all you guys knew about it except me. I just write backstories. I don't read about them.
Yeah.
Anything you can give us from that book, Phantom, Rory, anybody else, anything that you've seen in there, if you've read it, that you like?
I think it's great when you're looking at it's just thought-provoking is what it is. It's just giving you something, random page, a matter of status, high status, low status, right? And so high status, the person is trustworthy, the person is strong, the person is wise, so these are just different options, right? Mm-hmm. So imagine a table that you roll a d12 on, right?
Yeah.
It's really just that after that on different subjects. If you think of like writing a story or a play, Evelyn, it might be kind of like that, where you're just taking your 2-dimensional piece of paper and creating this very unique, I don't know what this called, but when you make shapes out of paper.
Yeah, so I think
origami.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I think that's cool to check out. Ultimately, I like the things that are created from inside here. Inside here and inside here, players connecting with something, but those thought-provoking, inspirational sources are great. So I've not read the book. but it sounds like a couple of you have. Phantom at least has it sitting on his Kindle. He's going to read it at some point. Blood Wild hasn't seen the book before. Yeah, I think it's probably worth checking out. I'm probably going to check it out. So we're going to close off with just this. And by the way, we're going to raid Jay here in a second, and it's always fun to jump into his show. But before we do, if you're following tonight and you've watched us and you haven't got us to follow, please do. We've got a goal, and I think we're sitting at 384 now. I wanted to get to 400 viewers followers by mid-July. I think we're going to hit it by the end of June, which is just so excited. So if you're watching tonight and you haven't given us a follow, please do. And then lastly, here's a quick group of a few questions you can think about for developing your backstory. What would they see at first glance? So what do they pay attention to? What additional attributes might be noticed? Speech or mannerisms? Sort of little idiosyncrasies. Where were they born? Of course, by who? Parents, living, dead, alive. The traditional orphan tropes, or slaughtered in a raid, whatever is fine. Marital status, kids, alignment, moral code, goals, religious background. Phantom said largest session ever was 10 players playing 13 characters back in a frat house playing D&D. Woo! I admire you, sir. Does your character have personality quirks? Antisocial, arrogant, optimistic, paranoid? How does he view his role as an adventurer, or her role as an adventurer? Birthmarks, scars, deformities? How do they socialize? Anything the character hates? So just these sorts of thought starters can be great for writing backstories. And so if I could be so bold, I guess I can because it's my channel and my show, I would give these two pieces of counsel. One, it's up to the DM and the players. Too little, too much, that's up to you. You create the campaign that you want. You create the group of characters, players, and backstory that you want. Two, my impression is you can't have too much. Give them the guardrails and the constraints to make sure that they're not giving themselves vorpal blades. That's hyperbole, obviously, right? But you get what I'm saying. Anything that's too much. But the more they think through these idiosyncrasies, probably what's in the book that Rory showed us tonight, that he's got, and he just basically, showed me up on the stream tonight. Whatever's in there, using those things to create the depth for your character can only be a help to the PC to put life into that role play, and to the DM for character threads and ideas, not just session 1, but session 31 and 71. And it's a great thing to have. So with that, I want to say thank you so much to all of our fans for being on the show tonight. Thank you to Evelyn and to Rory. Not only great dungeon masters and fans in their own right, but also the fantastic players on Greyhawk Awakening, and for Evelyn on our Rune Lords campaign and our 4th Age campaign. And yeah, you can tell when I find a great player, I grab onto them and make sure they're involved with everything. So I want to say thank you to everybody. And let me get up to set to raid here. Jay, anybody else? I see Phantom has a quote. You want to go ahead and read that, Evelyn?
Let's see. Also, don't ever assume that the players are going to understand or even want to understand the campaign world as well as you do.
So yeah, while I'm finding the Jay's channel to raid, that's a good point. So I struggle sometimes. I really look for players that are going to be as engaged as I want them to be, but ultimately, you're never going to have everybody as deeply engaged as you are. So how do you handle that?
I think one thing to do from the get-go is just set your expectations and make them reasonable. Understand that people are going to be really excited about it because, if they're playing D&D, it's because they love D&D, remember that more than they do from the get-go, and they might not be as excited until they hit those points that you were really excited about to begin with.
No, I think that's right. And by the way, did I just kick off a commercial? I think I might have hit the wrong button and clicked a commercial.
I'm seeing we are rating.
Well, okay. Or 60 seconds. So I'm seeing a 60-second ad break. Maybe if I go ahead and click.
I see a commercial.
You're seeing a commercial?
Yep.
All right, hang on, everybody. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to give you a commercial. Don't leave. We really want to braid Jay. It's almost done. 12 seconds. You're probably not hearing me over the commercial.
Yeah.
Ah!
He because they can't hear you when the commercials
And
yeah.
I'm so sorry. I did not mean to hit a commercial break. I don't
Yeah.
care about ad revenue. Total fail. Went for the raid button. Sorry, go ahead, Roy.
Yes, subs won't see commercials.
Yeah,
so
okay.
That's why you're not seeing commercials.
Oh, okay,
it's just
that makes
our
sense.
non-subs.
All right,
yeah.
subs don't see the commercials. Congratulations for everybody else. I'm sorry you suffered for that. We're rating Jay right now. This Blue Box will be back on Sunday, 1:30 Central, with our Rune Lord campaign. And then next Tuesday night, Greyhawk Awakening, Session 3. You're not going to want to miss it. I've got some fantastic new terrain, minis. It's going to be a fantastic session. And rating Jay now.
All right.
Does it look like the raid worked? It
Yep.
did.
Rating with party of 11.
Yeah, we lost.